Alright, so I managed to get my hands on one of the brand new Galaxy S5s. This particular model is for Sprint. I'm going to show you how to take it apart, fix the screen, fix the charging port, and a couple other things inside the phone. So to get the screen off of the phone, you do have to heat it up. I have a heat gun. You can also use a blow dryer as long as it gets the phone hot enough that you don't want to touch it anymore. When it's too hot to touch, it means that the glue that's holding the screen down is more pliable, and it will allow the screen to lift up from the device itself. So I have my little pry tool, and then once I lift the screen up, I can slip a little piece of plastic, whether it's a guitar pick or a piece of plastic. It'll hold the screen in place and not let it re-adhere back to the base of the phone. So I'm going to keep on heating it up as I put my little tools in around the sides. Make sure that you don't pry out from the bottom of the phone, because that's where all of the cables are for the buttons, the home button and the back button and the menu buttons. Also, there's one cable that I'll show you here that is actually controlling the LCD and the digitizer, so make sure you don't touch that either. Once you unclip that from the phone, you can lift the screen up and then pry the bottom buttons off of the front glass. As a side note, I just recently started using Instagram, and I think we should all be friends, so feel free to add me at Zach's Jerry Rig. I'm just pulling the home button off, prying very gently, because if you rip one of these cables, then you're going to have to buy the new replacement part for it. The whole screen removal process took me about 15 minutes. I don't think you can do it any faster than that and still be safe. And there's the screen. Super impressed with how thin it is. Hopefully Samsung makes this part relatively cheap for how difficult it is to get off the phone. And then here's the connector for it. So this is the whole screen. I'll put a link in the video description below for the screen, any tools that you'll need to finish this project. There are 10 screws holding the mid frame into the rear frame, and then there's also 3 screws from the back as well that you'll have to get undone. Once you get all the screws undone, you can see the frame kind of pull away from the mid frame. If you unclasp the little latches around the battery case, you'll be able to pull the back frame away from the mid frame. Start up at the top, unclip the top of it, and then the base of it will slide out of the little grooves that are built for that charging port to hold it in place. And then here are all of the buttons and the little connections that attach them to the motherboard. You can see that each button has its own little connections, which is something that, Samsung's really taken advantage of that this time around. Usually the buttons plug into the motherboard somewhere, similar to how the iPhones do it. There's also the rear speaker there. Here is the 3G and 4G antennas that connect the charging port to the main board. So you just unclip those. And then there's 2 screws holding down the boards to the frame. And right here, the charging port connects underneath the main board. So I'm just going to unclip that like a little Lego. And then the fingerprint sensor also is sitting right there on the top. So I'm going to unclip that as well. There you have the motherboard where the cameras are attached. You can also see the heart rate monitor on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and unclip the cameras. So if your cameras ever get blurry or get dust specks or just, stop working, if they ever get cracked, you can replace them pretty easily. I'll put links in the video description below for replacement parts as well. And then the charging port. So this is the thing that you'll be replacing most often on this phone, mostly because the charging port suffers the most abuse, besides obviously cracking the screen. So this charging port has the menu buttons, the back button, the fingerprint scanner, and is the charging port itself as well. Samsung's usually pretty good about making these pretty cheap, as they have with the Galaxy S4, the Galaxy S3, and all of their the Notes in the past. Anyway, here's the mid frame. We're going to go ahead and reinstall all the components on the phone now. There are little grooves that are built in for the charging port, so just make sure that it sits back exactly inside of those little grooves. And then I'm going to go ahead and start clipping the antennas back on as well. Make sure you line it directly above the little nub that it sits on top of, because if you bend these little antennas, then you can only have one shot at it. I'm going to go ahead and clip the cameras back on. Like I mentioned before, it's a lot like Legos. Really expensive Legos that you can just clip on to the main board again. Position it directly above, and then you'll feel it snap into place. I'm going to go ahead and drop the motherboard into place now. I do still have to clip that charging port onto the back, as well as the fingerprint scanner and the 3G and 4G antennas. There's those two screws that hold the main board and charging port into place. And then when you're slipping the mid frame into the rear frame, start with the charging port, because there's a little groove that's built in to hold it steady. Once that's wiggled into place, it does take a second, then you can snap the rest of the mid frame into place. Remember those 10 screws that hold the mid frame to the rear frame, and then the 3 screws that go in directly from the back of the phone as well. And then you just want to take the menu buttons and kind of re-tape them. I'm just using the same tape that they came with. It's actually pretty sticky still. And I've just put those back into place, as well as clipping the digitizer / LCD cable into place. Same Lego style connector. And then I'm pushing the screen back down. Replacement screens should come with their own adhesive, whether it's super glue or some kind of crazy glue, or just double-sided 3M sticky tape. You can just reapply that and stick it back down. I'm just going to reuse the adhesive that came with the phone. It's actually still pretty strong. Anyway, that's it. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. I will put in your replacement parts and tools also in the video description below. And don't forget to hit me up on Instagram, as well as subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.